Coming up on episode 195 of Wheel Bearings, I'll be talking about my thoughts on the 2021 Ram 1500 TRX. Nicole will share her thoughts on the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. Robbie drives the Daimler EM2 and goes for a ride in the Daimler E-Cascadia Semi, both electric. I have the announcement of the new Timberline sub-brand for Ford's SUVs, and Citroen comes back to the U.S. market for its Free to Move car sharing program. All coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. All right, welcome to episode 195 of Wheel Bearings, and it seems that Robbie is still sleeping late on the West Coast, so I'm not sure where he is. Hopefully he will join us at some point along here. But I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland, and this week let's go with Sports Car Market, because I just started writing a column for them. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so Nicole.
Yes.
What have you been driving this week?
I have been driving the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid, which I like. Okay, my favorite thing, two things about this that are going to seem like silly things, but it's really a sexy looking car. Like hybrids used to be kind of boring. They have really beautiful wheels on this car.
Or worse than boring.
Worse than boring. They were they were miserable cars a few years back. But this one looks really good. Like it really does look like a good car. It was sitting next to an Audi at Home Depot yesterday. And from the back, I'm like, you know what? These both look pretty cool from the back. And also inside, I have this pet peeve when there is no room to put anything on the center, like in the center console. Like you can put not even a spot for you to toss the key. And I know that people have purses or whatever. I don't. I carry my key in my wallet in my hands. I can't put anything down there. And as soon as you use the cup holder, that's the moment I go to get my Starbucks. And now I have to take out, and I don't have anywhere to put things. I had a cup holder, and there's a little slot between the two so you can put your phone in there. Then there's a spot in the front where you can stick your wallet and your key and whatever junk you have. I love the design of the inside of this car, so you can put your stuff somewhere.
Well, I think if I recall correctly, on the hybrid, there's also a space under the console as well, right?
Yes, there's room galore in this car. And that was the first thing I noticed, because I sit down, and also, it's 2021, it's the time of COVID. So I have a little tiny little bag that has masks in it. So if I forget a mask, or my husband forgets a mask, or my kids do, that just comes with me everywhere.
Spares.
It's the spares are there. And it's not like I can leave them in the glove box because it's a press car. So I have to take it with me each week. That little bag had a little spot to sit. So
that's nice. These
seem like little silly, not important things, but when you live with a car every day, they do start to grate on your nerves when they're not right. And yeah, well done, Hyundai. I like that.
Well, I think, this is one of the advantages that we've gotten from vehicles moving away from mechanical shift levers, where you have the shifter that's tied by a cable to the transmission, to just a push button electronic system. Because now all of a sudden you just have that little push button array there, and there's nothing underneath it.
Right.
And so all of a sudden that opens up all kinds of space to do other things in and around the console.
Yeah. But even if you have an actual shifter, people have stuff. You need to put your keys somewhere. You need to put your wallet somewhere. I don't understand these that have, I don't have a huge phone. It's an average size phone. And I sometimes I have nowhere to put it. So I'm shoving it in my pocket, or then you open up the little storage thing. Even in there, I've had some cars just literally, I can't fit my phone in there. If I can't fit my phone in that center storage thing, you haven't done enough. It doesn't, it's account for the fact that people have little things that they need to carry with them, and give us a spot to put our little stuff.
Because everybody needs a place for their stuff, as the late, great George Carlin would say.
Yes, everybody needs a place for their stuff. And the Hyundai Sonata has a place for your stuff. That made me very happy. And it's nice to drive. I enjoy driving it. I mean, it's, the first hybrid I ever drove was a Civic way back when it was like Civic or Prius were your only choices. So I remember, I always have that memory of what hybrids were back then. And it felt like you were driving like a lawnmower engine that would like go right through the hood of the car at any moment. I love that you don't really know you're driving a hybrid until suddenly you don't hear the engine. That's your only clue when it's very quiet. You don't feel the transitions. You don't notice it, which I feel like is how it should be. You shouldn't always be aware when that engine turns on and off.
Yeah. Well, one of the things when Hyundai first introduced their original Sonata hybrid, 2010, I think. At that point, they were one of the first automakers to go to this kind of layout using a traditional step ratio transmission. So it had a conventional 6-speed automatic paired with an electric motor and the engine, unlike the Toyota hybrids and the Fords and the Hondas that had sort of an electronic CVT, continuously variable thing, where in those, like you talked about, you get that buzzing from the engine because you get on the accelerator, the engine revs up to its torque peak and then just sits there. And that's what they call a motorboating effect that is really kind of unpleasant to drive, and even on a non-hybrid with a CVT, a lot of CVTs behave like that. It's just not very pleasant. It's
why CVTs get a bad rap, and rightly so, because they just don't sound nice. Nobody wants to listen to that. And I mean, they're better. They're getting better. I mean, each iteration, each time an OEM comes out with a new one, it feels like they're a little bit better and they do a little bit more work to sort of dampen that sound. So even if it's doing that, you're not hearing it quite so much, driving the car, riding inside of it. But, that's never what you never want to hear your engine in a way or you're working that you think, is something breaking? Am I pushing on that accelerator too hard? Am I about to kill my car? And that's what they kind of sound like sometimes. I don't like that. So I appreciate that this just feels and sounds like driving a normal, a regular gas powertrain with, they just have a regular automatic transmission in there. You have no idea that there's any hybrid stuff happening there until you're aware of that, like the sudden silence, which is a nice silence. And it doesn't even have it has the sound that it makes. We were talking about this before the show, like they have to make a sound under a certain speed so that you don't accidentally, hit pedestrians. The idea being the pedestrians won't hear you if the car makes absolutely no sound and they're more likely to step in front of your car by accident. This one makes a sound I'm okay with the sound. It's okay. Some of them are annoying. I still haven't found anything as annoying as the internal beep that the Prius makes in reverse, which makes me want to like stab my eyes out. It's so annoying. I don't understand that, but this one isn't bad. So
yeah, it's fairly subtle. It's, it's just enough that people outside the vehicle are going to hopefully notice it.
Right.
If you're trolling around a parking lot or something like that, and somebody with low vision, to alert them that or even somebody that can see, just to alert them, if they're not paying attention, that there's a vehicle approaching, because you don't have the sound of the engine. What kind of fuel economy did you get out of this one?
I looked yesterday, and I'd say I've been driving mostly like city driving. I haven't been on the highway that much. And I think I was averaging somewhere around 44 and change. So not bad. I mean, I think that's pretty good. I forget. I'm trying to look at the official. What do they say? They say 47 combined is what the official number is. And I think I was like 44.1, 44.2 last time I looked. So I'm in the zone for that. So pretty close.
So you're slacking then, because I think when I drove it last year, I got closer to 50.
Oh, maybe I got closer to 50. I wasn't trying. I was just driving it like a normal person. I wasn't trying to hypermile.
Hey, I mean, if you can get 44 miles per gallon out of a pretty good sized family sedan like that, that also happens to have halfway decent performance.
Yeah,
that's I'd say that's fine, and the reality is, if you as you go up in miles per gallon, because of the way miles per gallon works out, and you look at how much fuel you're actually saving, every additional 1 mile per gallon you get, you're reducing the amount of fuel that you're saving. So like when you go from 10 to 20 miles per gallon, you're saving a lot more fuel than if you go from 30 to 40 or 40 to 50. And so the difference in how much fuel you actually consume, how much you use over the course of a year, with a car that's getting 45, if you're getting 44 or 45 miles per gallon versus 50, it's inconsequential. I mean,
right.
You're talking, probably less than, $50, $75 a year worth of fuel. So it's a very small savings. So it's, if anything in the 40s, I think you're doing great.
You're doing good. And it, I guess, would be more important right now if you're driving a hybrid, because what I think it was yesterday, there was that hack of that one pipeline. I don't know if you saw that news. So supposedly it supplies 40-something% of the fuel to the East Coast. And the pipeline was hacked, and now everyone's panicking about fuel prices. So we'll see if next week we're going, oh God, we don't have gas prices are $10 a gallon. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And, there's been, some reports that, we can expect to see higher fuel prices this summer as well, because, more people are going to be traveling, as they get vaccinated, trying to get back to something resembling a normal life. So, having that extra fuel economy will definitely help. And, down the road, if we start to see higher fuel taxes or anything like that, it never hurts to have extra fuel economy.
Exactly. It's a good thing. It puts money back in your pocket one way or the other. Whether you drive a little or a lot, it does add up over time. I think so many people have been home for the last year, working at home, not even forget the vacations and stuff, just working at home. And you sort of gotten used to whatever your monthly gas bill is what it is right now. And when everyone goes back to work, it's going to be this shock. Oh gosh, I got to stop at the gas station more than once a month to put gas in my car. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So in the one that you were driving, the electric motor that's part of the powertrain isn't the only source of electricity into the battery.
It is not.
You had another feature on there.
I did. We also have the solar roof on my Sonata Hybrid, which looks really snazzy. And it was funny. My husband looked at it and sort of did a double take, like, what? Oh, cool. That's solar. My 17-year-old looked at it and said, what's wrong with your roof? Like, it just didn't register at all that that's what she was looking at. So, I mean, it's a cool thing, but we were talking about this again. I don't know how much, we're in New Hampshire where I get a modest amount of sun and it's not particularly strong in the month of May. So I don't know how much I'm actually getting in terms of improved fuel economy, but maybe if you lived in California where the sun was blazing hot almost every day of the year and you got full sun no matter where you parked, but that's not the case here. So I think it's nifty, but I don't know how much it's helping.
Yeah. According to Hyundai, if the car is parked, in direct sunlight, with the sun shining on that roof, you can fully charge the hybrid battery in about 6 hours, which means, that 6 hours will get you about a mile and a half of electric driving, which is about what you'd get from a full charge. If the battery is fully charged and you put it in EV mode, you'll get about a mile and a half of driving. Because hybrids are not, normal hybrids are not really designed for, electric driving except for very short distances at lower speeds. It's designed to assist and recapture energy from your braking and things like that. But, the thing is, the roof of the car is not flat, and solar panels are very subject to, actually being angled towards the sun. The angle that the rays of the sun hit the panel have a huge effect on the efficiency of, how much power it can generate. And when I had one, I think, I had it parked outside in the sun for a full day, and I think it barely got like half of a charge.
Oh, really?
And the thing is, there's actually a little meter in the instrument cluster, in the digital instrument cluster, that shows you the charging power you're getting from the solar panel. There's like a little 4-bar gauge in there, and as you're driving down the road, you can actually see, like, if you're driving, like I live in a neighborhood where, we've got lots of trees, and, drive under the shade of a tree, you can see it drop,
cool.
down to nothing, and then come back up again when you get in the sunlight, when you're when you're out of the shadow. So, it's really more of a gimmick than anything that's going to get you any significant amount of power for driving. But where it actually can be interesting, and I can't remember if the Sonata can do this or not. I know previously in the past, like Toyota has offered a solar panel on the roof, and a couple of other manufacturers have offered rooftop solar panels that could be used just to power the ventilation system in the car. So when you're parked out in the sun, you can pop the sunroof open, or just run the ventilation fan inside so it doesn't get quite so hot inside the cabin of the car. That could be useful.
That would be cool.
Yeah. But I don't think the Hyundai system can do that.
I'm going to be honest and say I don't know. I don't think that it does, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong on that. I don't see anything about that. And if it does, I didn't know that it did that. So there you go.
Yeah. So solar roofs are cool, but not really that useful on a car. And it also means that if you get the solar roof, you can't get the sunroof.
I know. So. That's the thing. It's funny. I went to open, because we've had some decent weather here, and I went to open the sunroof that doesn't exist. I was like, oh, wait, it's finally sunny, and there's no roof on this car that I can open.
So how much was that Sonata hybrid?
Slightly chopped off of my form, $36,000 and change. So, not bad. And that's for the Sonata Hybrid Limited. And I mean, it's got a lot of features. You feel like you don't feel like there's anything missing on this. You've got a nice, comfortable, well-equipped sedan. So 36 and change. And for, what do we say, a combined 47 MPG, that's, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. You can't complain about that.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. I would rather drive around in that Sonata Hybrid than in a Prius.
Oh, yeah. I know. I feel like we're knocking Toyota. Sorry, Toyota. But yeah, I would.
Well, I mean, the current generation Prius actually drives really well.
Yes.
But it's really hard to look at.
It's the style thing. And you know what I feel like? I'm going to say it. I feel like there's like an attitude that comes with Prius. Like you drive a Sonata hybrid. You happen to have bought a hybrid. People might not even notice that you're driving a hybrid. It doesn't scream like, I'm a hybrid, I'm green, I'm fuel efficient, go me. You get into a Prius and it's like, oh yeah, I care about the environment. So I'm buying a Prius. So I'm like, I feel like it's making a statement in a way. It's
virtue signaling. I mean,
virtue signaling.
Was for a long time. That was the thing, especially in California, where people were buying Priuses, when the Prius was basically the only hybrid you could get. A lot of people who were, wanted to show their green credentials, they would buy a Prius. Nowadays, you go to California and, Priuses are taxi cabs.
Right.
And, the Tesla Model 3s and Model S's are, I think we're past the virtue signaling stage with those now, but the Prius is now the new Camry of California.
It is. That's a good way to put it. No, we didn't buy
not the Prius. I mean, the Tesla is the Camry of California.
We didn't buy the reason we had a Civic hybrid back when they did that was because my husband at the time didn't want a Prius because he's like, I don't want that I don't want that attitude. I'm not that guy. And
you want something that looks more normal.
He's like, I want a normal looking car. I don't be like, oh, look at him. He got a Prius. He's like, no. I just have a really long commute and I can't afford gas right now. That's it.
I had the opposite of the Prius.
You did. Were we more like almost carbon neutral, not even close with what you were driving?
No, it was the anti-carbon neutral.
The anti-carbon neutral. Yes.
And this, this vehicle kind of represents along with one other, it kind of represents, I think, most likely the end of an era. So I had the Ram 1500 TRX crew cab 4x4.
Woo.
So this is the the Ram pickup with the Hellcat V8, the supercharged Hellcat V8. And right now, for the moment at least, this is the most powerful and fastest pickup that you can get anywhere, full size pickup. At least until the Hummer EV hits the road this fall. And it has 702 horsepower from the supercharged 6.2 liter V8. It sounds amazing. I mean, for anybody who's an automotive enthusiast, who likes the sound of great engines, I mean, this thing sounds fantastic. It's got that rumble and roar. It's definitely not something that you're going to sneak out of the neighborhood early in the morning.
Definitely not.
It's not like Ford on the Mustang a few years ago. They introduced what they called their good neighbor mode. For the dual mode exhaust. So there's a quiet mode for the exhaust. So as you're pulling out of your driveway in the morning, or if you're coming in late, you can pop it into quiet mode and it doesn't make quite so much noise. Not on this thing. There's nothing, absolutely nothing toned down about this truck. So the TRX is Stellantis's response to the F-150 Raptor. But then, turned up to 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the previous generation Raptor and the initial versions of the new one that are not on sale yet, they should be hitting dealerships sometime this spring, use Ford's 4.5 liter EcoBoost or 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6, with about 450 horsepower. The TRX, as I said, over 700 horsepower. It's got these Bilstein remote reservoir dampers on it. It's lifted up. It's got great big tires on it. It's got the full boat solution for off-roading, 4-wheel drive low mode, real 4-wheel drive system. It had the optional 12-inch Uconnect infotainment system.
I love that.
And driving this thing, it's been a couple of years since I drove a Raptor, but the thing I remembered about the previous generation Raptor, and I haven't driven the new one yet, but the previous generation Raptor always felt really soft in the suspension. It's got a lot of wheel travel. It's designed for high-speed off-road running, but when you're driving it on the street, it just felt kind of soft and sloppy. And when you're going around a corner, you could feel the body roll. If you hit the brakes, you could feel it diving. And it just never felt very confident to me. This thing, this has got the same kind of vehicle dynamics and, body control, wheel control that I experienced with the Wrangler, the Gladiator Mojave, which was their first desert rated model. The TRX doesn't technically have the desert rating that Jeep is planning to add to others, but it's got that same kind of feel. It's really well controlled. It's still comfortable. It doesn't pound you as you're driving on the street, hitting potholes and things like that. But I took it out, onto some back roads near me here, some bumpy dirt roads. I didn't have a chance to do any real off-roading with it, but going on on bumpy dirt roads, where we'd had some heavy rain and, so there was some pretty good potholes. I did a few launches on there, 0 to 60 and without launch control in 3.7 seconds, with launch control turned on 3.4 seconds. This is on gravel.
Oh my gosh.
And so, I mean, this thing weighs 3 tons. It's a 6,000 pound truck, empty.
Yeah.
And, because it's designed for off-roading, it's got running boards that are tucked right up against the body. So they're really almost useless because, they don't stick down for you. It's a high step up into the cab of this thing.
So people will not like it.
Yeah. Rebecca would not have a good time with this.
She's just going to dangle from the steering wheel as she tries to pull herself up.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I mean, there are grab handles on both A-pillars on the driver's side and the passenger side. But yeah, it's a pretty good step up into this thing. But it drives great, which is characteristic of the Ram 1500. Ever since the previous generation when they launched it with coil springs, it's had the best driving dynamics of any pickup truck.
Yeah. I had a chance to drive this too when they launched it back in October. I want to say it was late October of last year. They did a drive program and they had us take it off road. They had us on some twisties. We're sort of like in a mountainy area. We're somewhere in California. I can't even remember where now. But I agree with you about the on-road handling. That is a big off-road truck. It is nothing petite or small about it, but it handled really well. We're on a highway where the speed limit's a good like 55 miles an hour, but those big swooping, curves you get as you're going along on a mountain, and it's very controlled. You feel it's surprisingly controlled. And then they had us take it on a dirt track where we really got to push it and catch some air in it. And honestly, the thing that was funny, they had someone in the right seat. It's not like you were driving this on your own. And as you hit certain speeds, like when you at least hit this much so that you catch some air, when you come down the other side, you don't even feel it. And like, I'm watching these guys and I'm saying like, was I like much lower than that? I was like, no, that's about what you were doing, the same thing. And I'm watching how high they are and how they're coming down. I'm like, really? Because it didn't feel that way on the inside. And the inside, you kind of like, oh, like it's so controlled and it's so smooth, but I'm watching him from the outside, like, oh my gosh, bam. You don't feel that on the inside at all. So it was a joy to drive that. It was really fun. It was nice to be able to have a situation where you could, like, I'm not going to do that on my own with a press car. I take it off road and jump it. Like, no. But if Ram says, hey, we have this track, we're going to put a guy in this car with you. We're going to let you push this, and we're going to make sure that you know what you're doing, and you're in, an environment where it's okay for the truck, it's okay for you, all that'll work. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. And I'm not someone who does that every day. And it was so easy to do and so comfortable and just a redonkulous amount of fun. Like, I really enjoyed it. And what you were saying about the sound of that, I'd wake up all the neighbors and I wouldn't care because it just sounds so good. I'd be like, hey guys, look what I got. Vroom, vroom, vroom.
Yeah. With 5-inch tailpipes on the back there, it's nuts, and there is no logical reason for anybody to buy this thing.
No, absolutely not.
It's ridiculous. But
it's a completely stupid, unnecessary, over the top truck. And I love it.
Yeah. And, we were talking about fuel economy with the Sonata hybrid.
So it matched the Sonata, right? It did better. Yeah. Way better. Right.
No. I barely got 10 miles per gallon average.
But if you were
EPA rated at 12 combined, I barely got 10.
So you got 10. So worth it to have one. Oh my gosh, that's one, like a third, less than a third of the gas mileage, just not, but worth it for the fun of driving it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a 33-gallon gas tank in it, so I mean, it's not like you're going to be filling it up every 5 minutes. So that helps. But yeah, I mean, if you actually want something to go off-roading in, and if you're going off-roading, I mean, if you're going rock crawling in in tight canyons and trails and so on, this thing probably isn't the best choice because it is so big.
It's just big.
It's just like 5 inches wider than a standard Ram because you've got those big bulging fenders. It's got a wider track. But, if there's enough room to fit this thing, you can go pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's got skid plates galore, covering all the important bits on the bottom, big steel skid plates, which is why it weighs 6,000 pounds empty. But and a heavy duty frame and a reinforced frame. And on those big tires, you've got lots of ground clearance, lots of, high approach and departure angles. So that's not a problem. But, if you want to get into the tight stuff, something the size of a Wrangler is actually probably a much better choice. Yeah. But, if you wanted to go to, race in the Baja 1000, this wouldn't be a terrible choice. Yeah. It could probably handle that with, just add a roll cage and you'd be fine, But
you're right on the size, because they did have, what they had us do was highway driving the track. And then they had one very small bit where we're just climbing up a rocky, slope, and they had some spotters there, a little left, little right, had us, and they were sort of loose, large rocks. And it handled it no problem, but it was this giant swath of rocks. There's nothing on either side that was going to take part of your car with it. You need a big space, and even some of the tight turns as you're going through, it's like that would not be tight in a smaller vehicle. In this, you kind of think, okay, they said it can make it through here, so I'm going to believe them. It feels big.
It had power folding mirrors, so I mean, you can at least tuck the mirrors,
tuck those in. But the rest of the truck. But
fortunately, this the one I had also had the digital camera mirror inside, which is great because now I could actually see behind me. Because again, when you're up so high, you can't, anything within 20 feet behind you, you're not going to see it.
Right.
At least, maybe farther back. So the camera mirror system, is great for being able to see what's behind you. You can also turn on at speeds below 20 miles an hour. You can turn on the front camera, so you can, get a little help maneuvering around. It's not quite like what GM's promising for the Hummer EV, where I think it's going to have something like 18 cameras available, so you can see everything underneath and around. And
I can't wait to see what that image looks like on the infotainment screen. Like, how are they getting all of those cameras to show you one cohesive image? Like, I don't know how that's going to work. It'll be cool to see.
But as I said, this truck, it starts at $70,000. $69,995, and it's $1,700 delivery charge. This is something we talked about previously. Is FCA or Stellantis's delivery charge now is up to $1,700 on the trucks and SUVs. So I mean, really, that should be bundled into the base price. So you're really looking at a minimum of almost $73,000.
So it's not
$72,000 for this thing.
It is not a cheap toy, but it is a fun toy. And
the one I had, with the various options on here, came to $87,370 total.
So 87 plus the 1,700, then still on top of that. So you're looking at almost
that includes the 1,700. So all in 87, and that included the almost $8,000 TRX Level 2 equipment group and a bunch of other options. So the one thing about the Ram crew cabs is the cab is huge. If you're relegated to the back seat, I mean, it's like riding in a limousine.
Yeah, it is huge.
There's a ton of legroom back there. So whether you want to fold it up and put stuff in there and lock it away, or if you're just going to have passengers back there, you've got lots of room to work with. Ram doesn't offer some of the cool, neat features that are on the new F-150, like the pop-up and lockable cargo area underneath the second row seat that you have there. But it does still offer a lot of neat things. Because of the wide fenders on the TRX, you can't get the Ram box option on this, which is one of those unique features that Ram has had for more than a decade now, but nobody else has offered it, which is nice. If you're actually using your truck for trucky type things, you have those Ram boxes on the side of the bed that you can put tools and stuff into.
The storage
you can't get
thing,
that on the TRX.
like I was talking about in the center console of the Sonata. It's a
place for your stuff.
A place for your stuff.
But I mean, this thing is really, really comfortable to drive, stupid fast, stupid loud. It does have, because of the high ride height, the towing capability is reduced, so you only have 8,100 pound towing capability, only 8,100 pounds.
Only 81.
If you need the maximum towing, 12,500 pounds towing, you need to go for one of the regular Rams. But 8,100 is enough for most people.
Yeah.
And then, as I was saying, this is kind of like the end of an era. They'll probably build these for a couple of years. And then, it'll probably go away. The Durango Hellcat that is actually in my driveway right now. That's that's a 1 year only thing. So I actually, at one point on Tuesday, I actually had 1,400 horsepower.
I saw that picture you put up, all the horsepower in your driveway.
Yeah. And I had a conversation earlier this week. There's an article in the Detroit News about, kind of where Dodge, Ram goes from here, because Dodge, the Dodge brand in particular has become, a muscle car brand for Stellantis. Over the last few years, they've pared it down. Basically now you just have the Durango, the Challenger, and the Charger, and all of them are available with big V8s and Hellcats. And we talked about where does it go from? Where does that brand go from here? And really, I think it's what you saw on the Wrangler 4xe, going electrified, adding, probably we'll probably see at least a hybrid version of these future trucks and cars and SUVs, and probably a plug-in hybrid, because you can get enough extra power out of there that probably not with the supercharger, But, maybe with the new inline six, twin turbo inline six that Stellantis has been working on with a plug-in hybrid, I mean, you're going to get, probably pretty close to the same kind of performance as you get out of this thing.
But the sound, I like this. Yeah,
I know.
You're going to lose that. Are we getting at a point where now when those of us
well, if you do the V8 with a hybrid, you can still have the V8.
That's true.
The V8 sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when you go off road, you just, switch it off and, go nice and quiet, just like with the Wrangler 4xe. And I think in addition to this one, Ford is going to be doing a Raptor R version of the new Raptor, which rumor has it, there's no confirmation yet from Ford. Rumor has it that it's going to have the 760 horsepower supercharged V8 from the GT500 in there.
Ooh.
So these two are the last that we're likely to see like this, and everything else after this is going to be electric. The Hummer.
I get it, and I think you're probably right. I mean, it probably is the end. I don't want it to be the end, though. I just like I know gas guzzling trucks, terrible, killing the environment. Pandas are dying because of it, whatever. But I like the feel and the sound and the visceral experience of it. And I'll be sad when that sort of goes away. I know the performance can be duplicated, but the feel of it.
It's not the same kind of experience.
It's not the same kind of experience. And maybe it's like, it's going to make us all old farts as that happens. Like, I remember when I was a kid in the V8s and blah, blah, blah. But I like that experience. It's like manuals slowly disappearing. Like, there was a time when everyone knew how to drive a manual, and there was a certain experience of driving a manual transmission where you got to do the footwork and you got to shift the gears with your hands, and as opposed to paddle shifters or whatever. There's a certain experience you lose. And I feel it's kind of the same way.
Yeah, I remember back in early 2008 when I did the first drive of the Tesla Roadster for Autoblog, and it was the same kind of thing. Driving this thing in Northern California up along Skyline Drive, near Silicon Valley. This was an amazing sports car. Fantastic handling. It was like driving. Because it was derived from the Lotus Elise platform, and you had a lot of similarity in the way it felt, and it was really fast, but without the sound, it was such a different experience. And,
right.
You do lose that visceral component, but it is what it is. We gotta evolve. We gotta move on.
Forward. Yes. I guess it's what's coming. And it's not that I dislike the way EVs drive. I mean, they're a great experience, but they're different. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I'm just glancing at over at the Monroney here for the TRX. It says on there, they have the comparison against average vehicles for fuel consumption or fuel costs.
God, how bad is it?
you spend $12,750 more in fuel costs over 5 years.
Only $12,000.
They have the little ratings there for fuel economy and greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
1 to 10 rating for that.
Oh God.
1 out of 10.
Oh no, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just to give you
the smog rating is also 1 out of 10.
So here's your comparison to the Sonata Hybrid. So you save $3,250 if you buy this. The smog rating is a 7 on a 1 to 10, and my fuel economy and greenhouse gases is a 9. Yeah. I am entirely. We are opposing vehicles this week.
On the other hand, I could park the TRX right on top of that Sonata and not even notice.
No, it's high enough. You might be able to park over the Sonata. Like, would it just clip the top of that solar roof?
Yeah, almost. Might scratch it up a bit,
Just scratch it a little bit. That's it. A little skid plates right on top of there. That's all.
Yeah. Sticking this in here in the middle of the show because, unfortunately, Robbie was not feeling well last night and didn't set his alarm this morning for recording. So we're doing this after the fact, after Nicole and I recorded the rest of the show. But Robbie's here now to share with us stuff that he drove and rode in this week for the garage. And what did you drive? You had something a little bit different.
Well, I'm surprised I drove anything because clearly I can't participate in adult life because I don't know how to set an alarm clock.
Alarm clocks are overrated. I mean,
alarm clocks are I do have a dog. I have a cat who wakes me up. I have another cat who wakes me up. I have a lot of animals that wake me up. I also have allergies that knocked me out. So the allergies won today. But yeah. So I drove a couple things this week. I drove the Acura MDX, which y'all have already talked about, so I'm not even gonna dwell in that. I drove the Acura TLX Type S, which I'm actually not allowed to talk about yet. So I can't talk about that. So two Acuras, one we've already talked about, one I can't talk about, and then something completely different, the Daimler EM2, which is if you're scrambling to try to figure out what the hell I'm talking about.
It's not an E-Class.
It's not an E-Class.
And it's not an M-Class.
It's not an M-Class. It is a panel truck. It is an electric panel truck. While Nikola and Tesla have been talking about making these giant electric trucks they're going to put on the road, Daimler's been doing it. They've been working on their EM2 and their E-Cascadia. Both of them are Freightliners. Daimler owns Freightliner, if you weren't aware. Daimler owns a lot of the large
a bunch
trucks.
of different brands.
Yeah. You would be surprised how much Daimler and Volvo own in the trucking world. Or Volvo Trucks. Volvo and Volvo Trucks are two completely separate
Volvo
companies.
Group, which
Volvo
is different
Group.
from Volvo Cars Group.
Yes, it's a whole. Yeah, it's. Is it confusing? Yes. Does it make them a lot of money? Probably. So I rode in the E-Cascadia, which is the giant semi, and it has 360 to 525 horsepower and has a range of about 250 miles from a battery pack capacity of up to 475 kilowatt hours. Now, if you're thinking, well, they're never going to be able to drive from LA to New York, and that's not what this truck is for. It's essentially for getting things from the port to a warehouse, usually in an environment that is urban. So think New York, think Los Angeles, especially Long Beach, Pedro area, think Oakland, think San Francisco, Florida, anywhere where there's a port and you have to move large amounts of stuff from the port to a warehouse where then it gets sort of spread out either nationally or locally. And for additional local driving, they have the EM2, and that's what I got to drive. I don't have a Class 8 commercial driver's license, so they didn't let me drive the semi, and I kind of didn't want to because it had a big trailer on it, and I'm sure I would have taken out half of Oakland with it. But I did get to drive the EM2, which is a Class 6, 7, essentially like one of those big panel trucks you see driving around.
Yeah,
and
like the stuff when you order appliances or furniture, it's the kind of truck that'll be delivering that stuff, or a moving van.
Exactly, yeah, like a large moving van, or yeah, like you said, appliances or furniture, because typically they're delivering a couple things at once. It's larger than your typical U-Haul, but not as large as a semi, if that helps. So I drove that, and it was a very it was a weird experience, because if you've ever driven or been in a large panel truck like this, you know that they're diesel, so they're loud. They have that diesel sound. They have a lot of torque. And it's funny, whenever you're in one of those vehicles and when you're about to go, you can feel a sort of torque shift. It sort of twists the entire body of the vehicle before it goes, and you get that little lurch. It's like it didn't have any of that, because it doesn't have a drive shaft. It doesn't have is
the motor mounted at the axle, at the rear axle?
Yeah, the motor's mounted at the rear axle, so it just goes, and it's quiet, and it's smooth, and it's very and while I'm driving it, I'm pulling up to, because we were down by the airport. While I'm driving this vehicle, we're pulling up to other semis, other Class 6, 7 trucks, and they all have diesel engines, and there's like clack, 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 clack. They have that diesel sound, and you can see, as they go, the cab shifts, everything you anticipate from a very large truck going forward. And then you're in this, and it's quiet, and you're just kind of cruising, and it was so weird. And the regenerative braking, they have 10 different settings, and so they want you to be able to adjust it on the fly. So right now the cab they're redoing the cab. So the vehicles I drove are prototypes they're using to show off to potential clients, people who are going to buy these. And then 2022, when they hit the road, they're also getting a cab redesign. But the sort of the push button shifter it had up and down, and you could adjust the amount of regenerative braking. So you can set it up all the way up to 90 if you're going downhill. You can set it down to 20 if you just or 10 or 0 and just cruise. It was pretty great. And they were like, yeah, if you're going downhill, if you only have a few choices of regenerative braking, you might not be going fast enough. You might if we've all driven down here, you have regenerative braking, and you kind of have to feather the accelerator in order to keep up with traffic. With this, you can adjust. You're like, well, there's too much braking. Let me adjust a little bit.
So there we go. More granularity in that control.
Yeah, they're getting more granularity in that control. It was pretty cool. Is what it was. First of all, it's automatically cool to drive a big truck.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. You're driving this big giant truck. You sort of wish that if you're of a certain age, like me, the first thing that pops in your head is the song Convoy. For those who don't know, those of you who don't know that, go look it up on YouTube. Make sure you look up Convoy and not Convoy 2. Convoy 2 is a horrible song. Convoy 1's a little bit better. But in the late 70s, early 80s, it was sort of becoming a trucker was sort of a thing. And so, when you wrote from that, it's pretty great. So it has, they're saying it's on the 400 volt architecture instead of like an 800 or 900, which I'm still, Mercedes is the same way. They're not, they're still on this 400 volt architecture, but they said it'll charge an 80% in about 90 minutes. They can get 80% in 60 minutes. The E-Cascadia is 80% in 90 minutes. It has a battery capacity of up to 315 kilowatt hours. The battery sits right under the cab. It has a range of 230 miles. It has 180 to 300 horsepower, but it has all this torque, of course, and they didn't give me any torque numbers because, it's a prototype, and there's probably going to be a few changes here and there. Especially, the cab is going to be completely redesigned. But for the most part, if you live in a city, that there are a lot of trucks that are driving around constantly delivering things here and there. They sort of become part of the background, but they also are part of, the pollution that's being, spewed into the air where you live. And, Daimler, Volvo, and to a lesser extent, Tesla and Nikola, just because we have no idea what's going on over there. They are working towards sort of eliminating, especially in cities, a pretty large amount of CO2 that's being released into the air. And especially now because we have become so used to having things delivered to our home, like things have to show up to those Amazon warehouses somehow, and that involves big giant trucks delivering them from ports to warehouses.
So you take the Cascadia from the port or from the airport where the 747 freighters are landing. Take that to the warehouse, and then from there it goes on to the smaller vehicles.
Yeah, and so I drove the Mitsubishi Fuso, which a few years ago, which is a smaller sort of panel truck, which is also owned by Daimler. I know it's very, it's all very confusing.
There's been a lot of consolidation in the truck business. And VW Group also has a truck group as well, called which they spun off, or they separated last year as Triton. Which in Europe, it has the Scania and MAN brands, but here in North America, they just bought Navistar. So they're also working on electric trucks.
Yeah, it's interesting how much of the trucking business is owned by people you didn't realize. And, I don't know if it's just, people are used to the word, they're used to Freightliner, they're used to Mack, they're used to, and so when you have those names that have a ton of history behind them, when you buy them, you just sort of back off and let them do what they need to do. In the trucking industry, you don't just buy a truck. Every truck is typically custom built. Initially, these won't have as much customization as a diesel truck, just because they're spinning up the production of them. So they won't have nearly as much customization, but they will get there at some point. So if you have and every driver has some, or fleet manager has some sort of special need for their truck. So as long as what you need is available in these trucks, and there's a ton of, just like your passenger EVs, there are a ton of federal incentives to sort of bring the price down. It seems like there might be a little bit above parity. It probably won't be parity, but there'll be a little bit more. But when you look at the long run, and that's what fleet managers and these trucking companies do, is they're looking long term. They're thinking about
the operating costs too.
Yeah, exactly. So you're talking about maintenance and service and oil changes and all this stuff. And there's still a lot of services you have to do on these trucks, but not nearly as much as you would on a diesel vehicle. So it's, it'll be interesting next year to see how well these sell, how many end up in the market. And again, driving if I could drive it, it's.
So are they going to also offer the EM2, I think that's the one you drove, and the ones they've shown are, the box trucks, but
yes,
that same chassis, I think that the diesel versions, they sell that for things like trash trucks and other applications too, dump trucks, flatbeds. Are they going to offer the electric version for those other use cases as well?
They wouldn't get too deep into what the customization was available for each vehicle, but I think I think the goal is to get to that, because a trash truck just stops and goes all day. You really don't, it's not exactly, you probably don't need more than 100, miles.
Yeah, so it'd probably
range.
Be a smaller battery version for that. But.
Yeah. So you save money, you have that. So, they are talking about. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background.
That's okay.
They want to be able to offer the customization throughout the entire line, but they said that it's going to be less initially and then more later on. So we'll see. I think that they that in the long run, and maybe even within a year or so, they'll probably, again, if it sells well, then they're going to be selling them. They're going to be manufacturing them in Oregon, in the same plant they're building the other trucks. So it's not like they have to build a special, they have to adjust the line, but they're going to be building them on the exact same line. So okay. It's pretty smart, because building an entire facility just to make these trucks, especially at the beginning where maybe they sell a couple hundred versus the thousands upon thousands they're selling. Seems a little insane, but it's they're easing into it, but they are they're out there, they're selling them. I met the team that's selling them. There's they got people showing up. They have whole days. They were here in Oakland. They were going to Fresno. They're just going cross country,
demonstrating them to fleets and so on. Yeah, demonstrating for fleets, have fleet managers and trucking company owners and whatnot just come and drive the trucks and let them. I did find out if they have the CDL, commercial driver's license, and they drive the E-Cascadia, they do take the trailer off, so they let them drive. Okay. So, what was the Cascadia like?
It was sort of the same thing. It was you're sitting just a little bigger, and you can adjust the regenerative braking via a stalk on the steering wheel. And so you can sort of push it forward, push it back, push it in. So you can adjust it on the fly. And they were talking about how one of the things they have to sort of teach the drivers is that they can do this. This is something that they can do to increase range and save energy, et cetera. And in the long run, save money for their overlords and their bosses. But it didn't have
wear on the brakes.
Yeah, less wear on the brakes. I mean, it was. But again, you're sitting in this big truck and you're parked next to another Freightliner or some other truck, and it's making it's making that giant loud diesel noise that if you're driving down the freeway, you're going to be at some point you're going to be parked next to a semi truck, and they're not quiet. Sometimes when they take off, a little puff of smoke comes out of the top, even though they're not supposed to at this point.
Yeah.
They have you have to deal with engine brakes, which are very loud after 2007. Prior to 2007, the engine brakes were very loud. They had to figure out a way to make those quiet. So if you live anywhere near a freeway, you know that is that noise.
Yep.
that is the truck stopping, and with the regenerative braking, that won't happen anymore. So you don't have this sort of loud, annoying vehicle like sort of barreling through your neighborhood if you live in an urban area. And it's less noise, less pollution, and I still get my socks that I ordered from Amazon. That's kind of
that's all you need.
That's all we want. All we want is a better world.
Our stuff.
And all we want is a better world, but also our stuff. And these two trucks, it looks like that they're, Daimler has a huge reach in the trucking industry, so I think they have a lot more pull than some of the automotive startups that are out there.
Yeah, and Daimler Trucks also owns Thomas Built. I think they're the biggest manufacturer of school buses in North America, and they're launching electric versions of those too, which I assume are going to use the same hardware probably across the Thomas Built buses as well. Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to have the same hardware. I mean, it's interesting because they don't really because I asked about talking with the passenger division with Mercedes-Benz, and they were like, well, we kind of talk, but not really. There's just not, the difference between the engine, but the motor in, an EQS versus the difference in a motor in, the E-Cascadia is, that motor that I saw was huge. It's just, it was like half the size of a Beetle. It's just this giant electric, beast. It just, and on the E-Cascadia, you can get a single or tandem axle, and it's just, it's pretty insane. And it's one of those things people don't really think about when they think about the electrification of transportation, is all the other cars that aren't passenger vehicles and all the other vehicles that are sort of, making, creating smog, creating noise, creating this, creating that. Because again, they're so big and they're so part of the background, and you just sort of shoot past them when you're driving, that I think people sort of ignore the fact until they get stuck behind one. Then they're just like, why aren't there special roads for these people or for these trucks? And they're like, they're called trains and boats. But at some point they have to get to from here to there. So it was really fun, just because anytime you get to drive a giant truck,
it's always fun to be in a big truck.
It is really fun to be in a big truck.
It's like being a little kid again.
Yeah, and I think some of the fatigue issues that you have, the drivers have with being a big truck because of the noise and the vibration, like that is severely reduced. All you hear is the whine, so that's good for the drivers. If it reduces maintenance costs, that's good for the fleet, and if it reduces all the other things, the sort of environmental issues, it's good for us. So it's sort of a win-win-win, and then I'll just keep saying win for 5 minutes if it all works out. I'm sure there'll always be people who are like, when I was, convoy, rubber ducky, when they long distances, that, I think that's where hydrogen comes in. That's where, the hydrogen fuel cells really work. What Nicole is working on.
Daimler's working on that too.
Yeah, Daimler's working on. Toyota's been working on hydrogen trucks forever. They have a whole system set up down in Pedro in Long Beach area. Yep. So, it's certain tasks for certain powertrains. So it looks like, a couple of years, you're probably going to, next year, we're going to probably start seeing these Daimlers on the road. I think in 3 or 4 years, we're going to be seeing a lot more electrified vehicles on the road, whether they're battery powered or hydrogen fuel cell powered.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, that's going to make a big difference, especially in cities, where these trucks are doing deliveries and so on. They tend to be the biggest polluters, and so it's going to make a huge difference in quality of life, both air quality and noise levels in cities and suburban areas too. Yeah.
The trucking companies and the fleet managers, they'll hold on to something forever. And so, they'll just swap out the cab and throw it on top of an old motor or an old engine, old chassis. And so, it's going to be a little while because, they're every penny counts for them. But I think, as the transition happens, eventually, the trucks become more of an liability than they're worth. And then when that happens and they start looking at, okay, what's next? What's going to save me money in the long run? And for some of those, especially the smaller ones, they're probably going to wait 3 or 4 years before they, look into EVs or hydrogens. But some of the bigger companies where you're dealing with, thousands and thousands of trucks every day, if 10% of them are going to save you, an additional 10% of your output in cash, then you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much, Robbie. And we'll get this spliced in, and going to cut back now to Nicole and I talking about the Ford Explorer Timberline. Did you have any comments on the Timberline?
I don't have any comments on the Timberline. I think it's the sort of, yeah, I guess maybe I do.
All right, let's hear it.
It's just building the off-road capable anything that's based on just a regular SUV, and a regular SUV now is a passenger vehicle. It's a minivan without sliding doors. That's how I see large SUVs. They're fancy minivans without sliding doors, which makes them the worst minivan. I love minivans. I think minivans make way more sense than SUVs. No one's, I would, it seems like it's a lot of money for something you're going to take off road once or twice, maybe. And there are people, and there are already vehicles that people buy specifically for off road. They buy Jeeps, they buy 4Runners. I was going to, maybe a few people buy Defenders for that. But for the money, they don't buy G-Wagons for it, which is a huge miscarriage of justice.
They only drive those in Beverly Hills.
Exactly.
In Miami Beach.
Then no one takes these amazing vehicles off road. So it is adding you're adding additional, it's a lot of money for something you're never going to do, which is a very American thing for us to do. It's we buy things.
We buy things because we want, not because we need them.
Exactly. We think we're going to do a thing, and then we don't.
Which is why you want your socks delivered tomorrow.
Which is why I want my socks delivered tomorrow instead of just getting into a car and driving to Target. But again, it's your money. If you want to buy this, if you're going to go off road, thumbs up to you. If you're in a part of the country where you have to go off road or you have to deal with, inclement weather, and you want something a little extra, something in order to tackle that, just more than just all-wheel drive, which is completely capable on any vehicle of handling, and you get some good tires, you get some all-wheel drive, you can do anything and anything. There are very few cars that are just going to spin you into a ditch with all-wheel drive and winter tires. And it's you be you. How about that?
Exactly. It's your money. Spend it how you want.
It's your money. Spend it how you want. But maybe, I don't know, maybe just get a regular Ford Explorer and then get a Jeep, or get something if you're going to go off road, go off road, be ready to the zombie apocalypse. You can just drive over zombies and whatnot.
Yeah, or get a Ram TRX, which we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah,
which will pretty much go anywhere. I mean, it's one of the most ridiculous vehicles you can possibly get. I mean, who the hell needs a 700 horsepower supercharged pickup truck? But it sure is fun.
You can jump it over. You can jump it over creeks.
0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds on a bumpy back road.
Why do you need it? You don't. No one needs that much power, but people are going to buy it, and then 1%, 2% are going to spend some of their time off road. And most of those are because of this is where I live and this is what I do type situations. If you live in, there are people who live in Colorado, there are people who live in Wyoming, you need something that's off the road. If you live in, parts of Hawaii, you need something off road. If you live in Alaska, you need something that's off road. If you live in the Bay Area where I live, and there are so many of these types of vehicles and there's so many big, large trucks, unless you're hauling something, I'm kind of judging you. I'm sorry. I grew up in a town where everyone who had a truck was hauling something. We had to go, we had horse trailers attached to these. We had big bales of hay. You move things around in them. And then if you weren't doing that, then everyone just kind of why do you have that?
Yeah. I mean, here in Michigan, I live in Southeast Michigan, but if you head north on I-75, almost any weekend of the year, you're likely to find people with pickup trucks or big SUVs towing trailers with, depending on the time of year, either jet skis or snowmobiles or, dirt bikes or something else. And so a lot of people around here do use them that way. A lot don't, but a lot of people use them, especially for the towing capability.
Oh yeah.
But, it's, even this thing, the TRX is just total overkill. And as we were talking about, it's probably going to be this and the upcoming Raptor R, which we don't have any details on yet, but which may well have the supercharged V8 from the GT500 in it. That's the rumor anyway. These are likely the end of an era, because these are going to start to get supplanted by electric pickups that have even more performance capability, starting with the Hummer EV this fall and the Cybertruck and other stuff.
Yeah. I think that torque is going to be EV torque. It's such a game changer in so many ways because, and I feel like a broken record. And I say this every time somebody talks about EVs. If you put someone in an EV and let them drive it, they're going to want an EV because most of the time they're just going from stop sign to stop sign, and they like that little extra oomph that an EV gives them. Because top end horsepower doesn't really matter if you just have this really nice bit of torque on the back end at the you just ooh.
It's the old it's the old saying, people buy horsepower but they drive torque. Torque is what you feel. It's the thing that gives you the drivability off the line. And of course, with an EV you get the torque, but you miss out on that sound. There's nothing quite like the sound of a big ass V8. That is incredibly true.
I know I've had friends who are not even really car people get into, say, the Mustang Bullet, and then just have the turn up the exhaust and just drive that, and they're just tickled pink. They were so happy with that noise. And if you were outside the car and they heard that car going by, they'd be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe what is this?" But when you're inside the car and you are in control of that noise and it is something else. It's a visceral, primal experience. And then when you have the EV, you kind of don't have that. You can a couple cars have weird space noises. Woo! Yeah. But when you drive around town, you kind of don't, that gets old quick. And then it's so smooth at the lack of vibration, the sort of off the line. It is such a unique experience that people, again, just go to a dealership, find a friend with an EV and just drive it. And if you don't like it, then fine. You don't like it. Maybe, but I guarantee you it's going to change your mind on EVs if you're one of these people who are like, if it's either gas or nothing. I'm like, well, it can be both.
Yeah.
Most American households have two cars. You can have both.
And a plug.
Yeah. Most of us have electricity.
All right. Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next time. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. Couple of news items this week is a relatively slow news week. First thing, Ford launched a new variant of the Explorer this week, and it's actually going to be the first of yet another subfamily for their SUVs, the Explorer Timberline. And so they're going to be adding Timberline variants to a bunch of their other SUVs. This is supposed to be a little more rugged looking, a little more off-roady version of the Explorer. What do you think of this thing?
Cool. I guess I think it's neat. Isn't everyone kind of trying to do some sort of off-roady variant? Either you're a luxury brand that's coming up with your uber luxury thing like Denali and Avenir, or you're not a luxury brand and you're trying to come up with your rugged off-road capable line for your whole thing. So I guess it makes sense, or isn't surprising maybe, that they've done that. And it looks pretty good. I mean, I'm looking at the picture. It looks pretty slick. And it does have some genuine additional capability in there. It's not just an appearance package, because some of them do that. It's like, we made this look off-roady, but it's got not a single thing different from the non-off-road version, Right.
So this one, it's got a different front fascia with, it's cut away more. So you have a shorter or a steeper approach angle. They've got actual, real skid plates on there, not just pieces of plastic molded to look like skid plates, but, they're actually protecting the important bits underneath.
Right.
The Bridgestone Dueler all-terrain tires, new dampers. They've got some lights integrated into the grille on either side of the blue oval logo. I do like the dark green color that they're offering on this.
Is it just a dark green? I didn't get that part of it. Is it only in the dark green, or
it'll be available in other colors?
Okay, because sometimes they do that, like only with this color,
Yeah. No. So they've got press photos of silver and the green, but the green is the hero color for this,
which makes sense. Timberline. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so they'll be adding Timberline variants to other, certainly I think to the Bronco Sport, maybe the Edge. I don't know if they'll do it for the Escape or not, because they've taken the Escape and kind of diverged it from the Bronco Sport, because they're both on the same architecture, and the Escape is more the car like crossover variant, for street use and urban driving. But they're definitely going to do more Timberlines going forward. Probably the Expedition will probably get a Timberline. And there's also a Torsen limited slip differential on the rear axle, a few other things. It does come with the 2.3 liter turbo, the EcoBoost 4-cylinder. So, it should be an interesting option.
I think it's probably good to be modestly more. I mean, it definitely has some capability. It'd be interesting to just drive straight up Explorer and then drive this one back to back to see how much. Can you feel that difference? Do you notice that difference? Do you feel the capability they baked into it, or is it, I
think where you're likely to feel it most is just from having the all-terrain tires.
Yeah.
Just having more grip when you're off-road.
Right.
Because, the all-season tires that they put on normal ones, the Explorer, is actually reasonably capable. A couple of years ago when they launched it, I did the drive program out in Portland, and, we did some off-roading with it, and, it's fairly capable even in standard form, like in an XLT form. And this, is derived from the XLT, just kind of stepping it up a little bit more. It's not quite up there, I would say, with something like Jeep's Trailhawk models, which, that's their off-road rated versions.
But it's funny that you say that, because the tow hooks, oh no, I lost the color. What do they call it? Jeep has those red tow hooks on the Trailhawk, which is like a signature The red tow hooks.
They've got the red tow hooks on here as well.
They're called Red Ember tow hooks.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Red Ember. I don't know what they're called on Jeep. Does Jeep have a name for their red? I don't even know.
I think it's just red.
Just red? That's not very exciting.
No.
Come on, Jeep. Come up with a better name than just red.
I've always been shocked at how much effort they expend trying to come up with descriptors to add to the color names. Like Red Ember, or Midnight Blue. Well, Midnight Blue is kind of boring, but some of the names that they come up with for the various colors. Just
yes. Well, this ridiculous. Color, forged green metallic. Forged green metallic. What does that even mean? I mean, it sounds cool, but forged green, what you took it to a forge and you made the green? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, if you stuck a piece of steel in a forge, it's not going to come out looking green like that.
It is not.
I'm not sure really what that is supposed to represent.
What does that mean? Yeah.
I don't know. But no pricing yet on this, but it should be out this summer, I think.
No, it looks good. I think it's probably
assuming they can get enough chips to build them.
Oh my gosh, there's such a you know what? I actually see the shortage on lots of vehicles from the chip shortage. You can see it. You drive by our local dealerships. It's like there's no cars out there.
Yep. Yeah, they're missing everywhere. Citroen, another one of the 14 Stellantis brands. This is one of those classic French brands. Last year they launched a car called the Ami, which is French for friend. It's a little 2-seat pod. It's electric.
The friend.
I think it's like 8 horsepower or something like that. It's designed. They designed it mainly for their Freedom Move mobility service that they offer. They launched it last year in Washington D.C. and Portland, Oregon. They also have it in a bunch of European cities. And one of the things with the Freedom Move service is they have car sharing in there, but they also integrate some other services as well. So, if you need a ride hail or something like that, you can use that to find rides. Whether you want to drive yourself or have somebody else drive you. And I'm not sure exactly which services they're offering here in the U.S., but they're now including the Citroen Ami in their car sharing fleet in the Washington D.C. area.
Wait,
what do you think?
It has a top speed of 28 miles per hour. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Can you even?
It only has 8 horsepower.
I know, but at a range of 45 miles. Okay, so you really are just looking for the shortest little, I need to drive 6 blocks and it's pouring rain or freezing cold and that's it. Because you can't even get on the...
Or to go to the grocery store, something like that.
I guess. I mean, it's really cute. It's like the most adorable little car. It looks like something, you know what it reminds me of? The cars the kids have that are always yellow with the red roof, that, little plastic cars. That
little Tiny Tykes cars.
Yeah. It looks like a Tiny Tykes car, but it's real.
Yeah.
I don't know though. At 28 with 8 horsepower and a top speed of 28 miles per hour, I think my 7-year-old may have been able to beat it though. Her feet move pretty fast.
Almost, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, think about it though. In a dense urban environment, you're almost never going 28 miles an hour anyway.
This is true. But I'm just thinking you could, you could still,
before the pandemic, the average speed in Manhattan was 8 miles an hour.
Okay. I mean, no, I get that. But I mean, you couldn't even for 1 second get off of even in Manhattan, when you go, I don't know the names of the roads, but you kind of, as you're exiting the city or coming into the city, there's sort of the sides that get kind of speedy fast. You wouldn't be able to hit the actual speed of traffic there. You would get run over by
you wouldn't be able to drive it somewhere
taxi.
like the West Side Highway or something.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Like that, you would be run over in a second, and a hot minute absolutely. You would be run over, you'd be roadkill. So you really just have to intend to drive.
And certainly a lot of New York City cabbies would run right over.
Oh yeah, boom, you're dead. Yeah, they've run over you like the TRX over the Sonata. Yeah. You'd just be gone.
So it'll be interesting to see how popular these are going to be. They're doing it for a 6-month trial to start with. And
as I'm picking on it, I mean, I get it's a cute car. It is a nice little solution if you really just need a super short jaunt, and it's adorable. It really is a fun little car.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how much they charge.
I know. I was scanning down this story and I don't see anything talking about pricing.
Yeah, I don't think that they've announced the pricing yet. And that's been one of the challenges. And I'm not sure, like with Free to Move, how they're doing it, whether it's, a free floating car share or you have to return the car back to where you picked it up from. Because this has been one of the problems with car sharing services and why they've kind of struggled to really gain enough traction in the U.S. market, and even in other regions as well. They started off, like the zip car kind of model where the cars are parked in a specific location. You'd reserve a car, you go pick it up, and you drop it back off at the same location. You didn't have to put in gas or anything or charge it. That was all taken care of. You didn't have to worry about insurance. It was basically a short-term car rental. And then they went to some companies went to free floating car share, kind of like what they do now with the scooters, where you can just drop it off. You don't have to take it back to where you picked it up from. You just drop it off anywhere.
Right.
And the problem with that is it's actually really expensive to operate that, because periodically you've got to have staff that go around, find the cars and reposition them,
bring them all
places.
Back.
Yeah. To bring them back to the places where people are actually trying to use them.
Right.
If you drop one off somewhere where there's not much usage, it doesn't make any sense. So it'll be interesting to see if they can actually make a go of it. Most of the other car share programs, like GM shut down their Maven program last year. BMW shut down their Reach Now or Ride Now or something, Drive Now. I forget what they call
something
it.
Now, but it's no longer.
Daimler, Daimler had their car to go. They've all been shut down because they couldn't make any money off of it. So,
but you wonder where this is, because this is such a cheap little car. It's not like, it's not the same investment in capital as those, with these tiny little cars.
My guess is it will probably be, return it to where you picked it up from so you can plug it back in.
Right. Otherwise you just leave it there. You sit it there and you run it down, and now your car is dead in a parking lot. Good luck.
Yeah. All right. Enough of the Citroen friend.
Yes. The Ami.
So we had one listener email this week from Brian McMillan. Say, good morning, afternoon, or evening. First off, I just want to say how much I love the show and appreciate what you all do. While the news of Rebecca and Dan's departure is certainly saddening for the listeners, it does seem that Nicole and Roberto have picked up right where they left off. Keep up the good work.
Aw,
thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
As a recent ICE to BEV converter, so that's internal combustion to battery electric, converter, pun intended. I wanted to share my thoughts, experience in regards to your discussion on episode 191 when answering a listener's question about buying an ICE versus an EV. My wife and I have always been road warriors when it comes to travel, as she's not particularly fond of flying. So in 2014, we purchased a brand new Dodge Caravan and proceeded to put close to 100,000 miles on it in 5 or 6 years. While we still own this vehicle, it is rarely used anymore, as both kids are out of the house and our daily driver is a Tesla. My Tesla is a 2020 Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive and has become our new road trip mule. Between work and pleasure travel, I've put more than 6,000 miles on her in about 6 months. That's right around the average. The average is about 12,000 miles a year.
So he's right in there.
Yeah. With our longest road trip traversing over 1,500 miles round trip. Our experience has been that road tripping in an EV, specifically a Tesla, is actually better for our needs driving style. We've always been the type of family that enjoys the journey and when traveling. Stopping is needed for bathroom and snack breaks, not eating meals in the car, and typically never driving straight through to our destination. So with our Tesla, that combination of autopilot and charging stops makes the trips much more enjoyable and relaxing while not adding extensive trip time versus ICE travel. While there is no doubt that road tripping with an EV will add time to your trip, there are ways to maximize it, like staying at hotels with destination charging along the route. From our experience, these destination chargers are abundant, free, and fairly easy to find with a search on Google Maps. Then for supercharging along the route, stations are easily accessible, strategically placed, such that range anxiety is not an issue at all. While Tesla does get a bad rap for various reasons, and deservedly so in some cases, I can absolutely recommend a Tesla today to anyone that likes to road trip for the reasons mentioned above. And I have to agree, for the thing, all the things I've complained about with Tesla, the thing that they've done the most right is the build out of the supercharger network, because it convinced people that you can go anywhere with an EV, and they've got currently about 1,000 locations across the U.S. With about 10,000 chargers. So there's an average of about 10 chargers per location. Some are 6, some are 12 or 18, and some of the really popular spots. But yeah, I mean that is absolutely a really smart thing that Tesla did, and Electrify America and other companies are trying to replicate that now with their networks, but they're not there yet. Tesla or Electrify America has about 600 locations now. But I think one of the things that Tesla has also done well is they've generally done a pretty good job with reliability of their superchargers. And that's something where a lot of the other charger networks have had challenges, is with reliability. That's
what I see here, because I agree with everything that he said there, especially with Tesla. But I mean, I see in my area the number of times that the charging stations that are not Teslas just aren't working. You go up and there's just, you can't even get them to work, or you seem to have done everything right. You plug it in, something's not the cable, the cable is not right. Something's been, there are very frequently issues with the actual physical chargers that are around us. We don't have as many in New Hampshire. It's a function of just where I live. But the Tesla, there's a bunch of superchargers at a rest area on a major sort of thoroughfare heading up to the White Mountains, which is anybody who's traveling north to come like vacation up here, you're going to go buy them. So if you've been traveling from New York or Massachusetts or wherever, there's a good stop for you. You can stop, you can get some, get something to eat, take a bathroom break and charge your vehicle. And I frequently see Teslas there. Like sometimes on like busy weekends, there's maybe only one or two open spots, but that means there's quite a few people that are charging and having no problem doing it. So I definitely think like what you're describing there, Brian, I totally get it. And I think if you're the kind of person who travels that way in a road trip, and I like to travel that way, I don't generally just get in the car, drive as fast as I can on the busiest highway, get there and be done with it. I still like to stop and check stuff out too. And I think if that's your style of road tripping, they're much easier to live with, Tesla or otherwise. But if you're on that, I think back to when I was in college and that road trip where, you're just coming home from school, or you're, and you've got to drive 14 hours of driving and you just want to knock that out as fast as you can. That's when it becomes more of a challenge, which is, I don't know, how many people do you think are doing a road trip because they're really trying to stop along the way, or how many are really focused on the destination? I don't know, Sam, like how does that play out?
Yeah. I think, there's clearly a split there. I don't know what the split is. But I think a lot of people, this is, as we start to continue to build out the charging infrastructure across the country, this is one of the things that needs to be thought about is, where you locate these chargers. You want to, the reality is that even with DC fast charging, you're going to be sitting around somewhere for probably, a half hour or so at a minimum. If you're going from near empty and you want to fill it up to get, maximize your range, you're probably going to be sitting around for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes at the least. And so you need to have those chargers located somewhere where you've got, some sort of amenities, certainly bathroom, but, something to eat or, other things that you can walk to see. And, this is another one of the challenges, is not just putting the charger, at just random rest areas, but ideally putting them somewhere where people have some options of other things to do for a half hour or an hour while they're waiting for the vehicle to charge. But I still think that, the biggest challenge is the reliability. John Volker, recently wrote something about this. He was testing the VW ID4 and, he went to a couple of different Electrify America stations and granted, EA did have a problem with a bunch of their charging stations, particularly on the East Coast, with one of the vendors that was supplying the chargers themselves. And they have since ended their relationship with that particular supplier and converted over to another supplier. But this is not an issue exclusive to EA. ChargePoint, Blink, EVgo, I've had issues with all of them at some point in time or another, where you plug it in, nothing much happens.
Yep.
GM just announced last week, or week before, maybe it was last week, the Ultium 360 charging network. So within their app for their vehicles, they're integrating, I think, to start with 6 different charging networks. So ChargePoint, EVgo, Blink, Green Lots, and a couple of others, and they're going to have 60,000 chargers.
Wow. That
are accessible through there. That you'll be able to see them on the map. In the vehicle. You can plot your route easily, and this is something that automakers also need to do, is make that better integrated. So when you put in your destination, if your destination is 500 miles away and you've got 250, 300 miles of charge, have it automatically show, okay, here are the places where there's chargers available that you can go and use. And, ideally, have a filter on there where you can put other things that you want. So if there's a charger, if you want to, have a lunch break or, go to a museum or something, find those other things nearby as well.
I had a Bolt EV at one point and was looking for a charger. We went down to the Cape down that way. And so we were coming back. It's not a super long drive, but, and was looking for some place where I could charge it and thought we found a place, and we get there and it's literally the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, we're in this sort of old abandoned like mill buildings in the city in Massachusetts. There's one office here. And then in this parking lot where there is nothing except like it looks like no one's parked in this parking lot in 30 years. It's like half overgrown. There's one EV charger. And we're sort of driving up and I'm kind of like, so do I just leave this car here and then wander about and see if there's some place where it was weird. I'm like, I'm sure there was some method to the madness when that was put in, but if it's sending you to a charging station like that, and it wasn't like the Bolt sent us there, it was just like, that's what we found when we searched. It's like, this is not helpful because I'm not just parking here and wandering about this area. I feel like they will never see me again. They will find the car and nothing else, Yeah.
Well, I think about 3 years ago, at there's this event every summer in Traverse City in northern Michigan called the Management Briefing Seminars, put on by the Center for Automotive Research. And my friend Bob Gritzinger, who writes for Rewards, he had a Bolt press car that he was going to drive up to Traverse City, and it's about 250 miles from Metro Detroit area up to Traverse City, which is generally within the range of what the Bolt can do. And he had planned to stop along the way, to top it off, just to make sure that he got there safely. And he stopped at two of the charging locations that were identified in the nav system were at offices of Consumers Power, which is one of the two main utilities here in Michigan. And he stopped at the first one. The charger was there, but it was not working. Ugh. Went to the second one. Same thing. Charger was not working. Eventually you get off I-75 and you take some secondary roads to get to Traverse City. He found a spot where he and his wife could grab some lunch and plug it in for an hour or two, to get some more miles in the battery, and managed to get it to Traverse City. And then when he got to the hotel where the event was, the Grand Traverse Bay Resort up there, they had 5 chargers there. 2 of them were Tesla only chargers. The other 3 were CCS chargers. The 3 CCS chargers, none of them were working. The 2 Tesla chargers were occupied, but you couldn't use those anyway. But they were working. But none of the CCS chargers were working. And, they were being operated by some small network charging network provider, located, I think, in Washington State. And Bob tried to get on the phone with them to see if they could reset it, see if they could do something. They couldn't get them working. Finally ended up, he around the grounds, around the hotel, in the wintertime, they have all these Christmas lights. So they have plugs that they have set up all around the
Did he unplug Christmas lights to plug in his car?
Well, the Christmas lights weren't plugged in there, but he saw the little post with the outlet on there, just a standard 110-volt outlet. And since we were going to be there for 4 days anyway, he just plugged it into a standard one, took the cord and plugged it in and used that. And by the time it was time to go home, it was charged back up again. But, this is the kind of ridiculous thing that both automakers and the charging network providers, if they want to get people to adopt EVs, they have to do what Tesla has done and really make that process seamless.
I think that's the biggest thing that when, it's not so much, I know we would say range anxiety. It's not almost that you're going to run out of range before you get where you're going. But when you get where you're going, will what's supposed to be there actually be there? And will it actually work? Which it's a different thing. It's not like I'm going to run out before I get there. It's like, no, I planned everything just perfectly. I will get here. I'll be able to charge. What do you mean all 4 of your charging stations are not working? Now what do I do? Where's the nearest one? Well, you got to go a town over because you're on vacation and you're someplace rural. It's like, well, now what do I do? It's that inconsistency with being able to charge when you get there. That's a huge obstacle for a lot of people.
It is. And as I said, that's something that the industry really needs to address. If they want to, if GM hopes to sell 1 million EVs by 2025, they're going to have to fix this. And same goes for Ford and everybody else. These things need to be as reliable as a gas pump. It's pretty rare that you go to a gas station and there's no working pumps.
Right? Like there's one pump that's not working out of the 15 that are there or something, and if not, even if that one pump, even if you have a gas station, for some reason, a gas station is having an issue, there's a pretty darn good chance you can drive 5 miles down the road or across the street. And there's another gas station. Like, it's just, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of a pain in the butt. I wanted to go to this one. I'll go across the street or right down the street. That is not always an option with EVs. It's just not. Maybe it will be at some point, but until it's that easy to get past it's not working when I get here, that's going to be an obstacle for a lot of people.
It certainly is. All right. Got anything else for this week?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, that has been episode 195 of Wheel Bearings. Hopefully we'll have Robbie back next week.
What happened to him? Where'd he go? Did he sleep in?
Maybe there was an earthquake.
Was there an earthquake, California? Because that would be sad if we're picking on him and there was an earthquake.
There was one earlier this week. I think there was a decent sized one, but that's, pretty much a daily occurrence.
I know. It's like, when isn't there an earthquake in California?
when you live in the Bay Area, having the ground moving under your feet is not an unusual thing.
The norm.
So hopefully that's not the case today.
Okay.
But we'll catch up with Robbie next week.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.